It is indeed a gloomy day for multilateralism when the very symbol of international peace, the blue helmets, are under direct attack. Israel has made yet another breach to UN Charter.
So Israel has continued to violate international law and international humanitarian law with impunity. Yesterday, I told you in my video how Israel had deliberately targeted the international peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon and also injured 2 Indonesian soldiers. Of course, as expected, Indonesia had registered a strong protest at the United Nations Security Council when the talking shop of the world body, that's what the UNSC has been reduced to, held a so-called emergency session to discuss Israeli violations.
It is indeed a gloomy day for multilateralism when the very symbol of international peace, the blue helmets, are under direct attack. Israel has made yet another breach to UN Charter, another affront to international law and international humanitarian law through its direct attacks against UN peacekeepers. The IDF's indiscriminate attacks against UNIFIL, which wounded 2 of our peacekeepers, clearly demonstrates how Israel positioned itself above international law, above impunity, and above our shared values of peace. We strongly condemn this violation. The lack of any apparent moral compass by Israel is indeed appalling. Against this backdrop, Indonesia wishes to highlight 3 points. First, Israel's actions against UNIFIL represent a blatant attempt to spreading terror on the ground, to intimidate both the peacekeeping mission and the international community. This is unacceptable. And let me be clear, those who stand by the cause of peace will never be afraid of bullies and perpetrators of genocide. We remind the Israeli forces and all actors of their obligations to ensure full protection of UNIFIL personnel and UN properties. Second, Israel's ongoing defiance of international law demands immediate action. The attacks came amidst a broader pattern of violations of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 by Israel. This includes repeated incursions into Lebanese territory, violating Lebanese sovereignty and territorial integrity. As clearly recorded in the UN Secretary General's report on the implementation of the resolution, from February to June alone, 1,551 air violations were launched by the IDF. The persistence of these violations of international law without any meaningful consequences is a matter of serious concern, undermining the credibility of international legal order and undermining the credibility of this very council. Third, as UNIFIL's largest troop contributor, Indonesia underlines our firm and full support to UNIFIL and UN peacekeeping. Indonesia pays tribute to all UN peacekeepers serving on the ground. We honor their bravery and dedication to the cause of peace. Despite the outrageous attacks, Indonesia remains firmly committed to working with the UN, the UNIFIL force commander, and the international community to ensure the success of UNIFIL mission. De-escalation efforts and the prospect for lasting peace in the region hinge upon UNIFIL's ability to fully implement its mandate. The Council must act decisively to ensure that UNIFIL can continue its vital work in southern Lebanon, upholding the high standards of conduct while ensuring the safety and security of UN peacekeepers. Excellency, the Indonesian Constitution mandates all Indonesians to contribute to a world order based on freedom, lasting peace, and social justice. And this is why Indonesia is a firm supporter to UN peacekeeping and proudly stand as the 5th largest troops and police contributing country. Their mandates derive from the Security Council. Let me therefore ask the Council the following. Our peacekeepers have delivered on their mandates. Please make sure the Council also delivers on yours. Thank you.
Now today, Israeli soldiers have targeted Sri Lankan soldiers who are also part of the international peacekeeping force there called UNIFIL. They left many of them injured. Just like yesterday's, today's attack too was deliberate. Do not take my word for it. This is BBC's Jonathan Head, my former colleague, giving live update from Lebanon.
What we've heard from the UN and the 3 incidents that happened in the last 48 hours, this latest one hitting a post where we think at least 2 Sri Lankan soldiers were hurt. There were 2 Indonesian soldiers hurt yesterday morning. Is the UN saying that they were deliberately shot at? This is not crossfire. Yesterday, an Israeli tank shell hit an observation post. We've seen from these Israeli airstrikes how accurate they can be, so no one thinks that these are accidents. Israel has made the point that the UN's posts happen to be in areas where they are fighting Hezbollah. They've got Hezbollah in those areas all around there. They've warned the UN to leave. The UN has said, no, we should not have to leave. We should be able to be in our bases and you should be able to leave us alone. So it's a sign really of how determined Israel is to push ahead with its incursion into southern Lebanon. It's got perhaps 15,000 troops there now. We don't know how long they're going to stay. We don't know how deep they're going to go into southern Lebanon. In the past, remember, the distant past, Israel has actually occupied large chunks of southern Lebanon for long periods of time, and it's possible they may view that as part of their goal of making northern Israel safe from Hezbollah rockets. We don't know at the moment, but the UN has found itself very much in the firing line.
Jonathan was in Beirut at the time of reporting, where Israeli bombed more civilian targets on Thursday night. And since the minions at the White House and the State Department have been telling us that Israel was only targeting Hezbollah strongholds, listen to Jonathan Head. He says the latest attack, the most brutal and deadly by Israelis yet, was in the area where Hezbollahs don't exist.
And Jonathan, we'll come to what Antonio Guterres was saying in a moment, but just in terms of the strikes in central Beirut, you actually felt them, didn't you?
We did feel them. They weren't very far away from where we're standing now. That's what made these strikes stand out. This area here doesn't have a Hezbollah presence, nor the areas that were hit last night. Not one that was known about anyway, that are just a little bit over that way, but very visible. We could see the columns of smoke. We felt the shock waves hit the windows here. And it's reminded Lebanese people that these strikes could be anywhere. I think it's really increased the sense of insecurity. People in those 2 neighborhoods were particularly shocked. They never expected to be targeted. There was no warning beforehand. Really shook them up. We've just spoken to one man who lives there, and he's said, well, I'm thinking I should leave. But of course, if they want to leave, they just end up joining tens of thousands of others just in this city who've had to leave in the last 2 weeks, leave their homes. They're scattered all over the city. They're camped with relatives in very small apartments. The problem about leaving is, where do you go? And increasingly, Lebanese are beginning to feel that there really is nowhere that's safe here.
What's more, he's saying that people are scared out there because now nobody knows which part of Lebanon or which part of Beirut will be hit. Earlier, there was an impression that only the stronghold of Hezbollah, the area where Hezbollahs are strong or they are present, they will be hit. But now the Israeli army is bombing indiscriminately. And they're using lethal weapons. They're using 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs provided by the US. You can see the visuals. It's there. And I'll be putting on Telegram as well, on my Telegram channel. You can go on the Telegram channel and watch it. The details are on the screen. The multi-storied. Just imagine, you all must be living in multi-story. What does it take to destroy the entire multi-story building? That's what the Israeli bombs are doing. They're decimating those multi-story apartments. That's how powerful bombs they're using, and they're using targeting civilians. Because it's no longer Hezbollah. If Hamas was an excuse to destroy and flatten Gaza, Israeli terrorists are now using Hezbollah as an excuse to destroy the whole of Lebanon. The problem is not here the Israeli war crimes. Of course, they are the problem, but that's not the only problem. A tiny settler colony can dare to profess and practice such dangerous aspirations and kill people for fun, destroy properties, invade sovereign nations with impunity? That is not the problem. The problem is the complicity of the West and now the United Nations. Their collective support is what has made Israel so emboldened. Just see some of the responses coming from the top brass at the United Nations yesterday. Don't know if this is the result of Israeli fear or some inducements or any other factors. 2 UN Under-Secretary Generals. Mind you, they are the second senior most functionary in the United Nations after the Secretary General. They are reading Israeli scripts. That's exactly what they were doing. While the spokesperson looks so terrified and frightened.
The situation in Lebanon has become even more alarming. The exchanges of fire between Hezbollah and the Israel Defense Forces, which commenced on 8 October last year when Hezbollah fired on Israeli targets in stated support for Gaza, Hezbollah and other non-state armed groups must stop firing rockets and missiles into Israel. We urge Israel to stop its bombardment of Lebanon and to withdraw its ground forces.
Israel's stated aim is the return of inhabitants to their northern communities after 1 year of fear, 1 year of displacement. Hezbollah continues to fire across the Blue Line and is now threatening major population centers, including Haifa and Tiberias in Israel, with increasingly high-caliber weapons.
BBC reporter's testimony today is damning and must be used in the future to establish the criminality of the West whenever Israel is brought to justice, if that ever happens in our lifetime. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.